Hello everyone. This is Rumela here from the 1947 Partition Archive. I hope you had a great Monday. Today I'm here to welcome you to the launch event series for the Tata Trust Partition Archive University Research Access Points, and I'm excited to be hosting this launch. We will be there every day this week at 8:30 p.m. Delhi time to tell you a bit about the project. So let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Rumela and I'm Communications Manager Oral History Program at the 1947 Partition Archive. And today I am joining you from Kolkata, India. In case you're new to following us, the 1947 Partition Archive documents the nearly lost history of partition through our flagship oral history project, which is the largest of its kind in South Asia. With your help, we have documented almost 10,000 family stories. You can learn more about our work by visiting our website or speaking to any of our team members. You can visit our online channels to find all the links and content you need. Now I would like to invite my colleague Achal Geeta Singh, who oversees the Tata Trust University Access Program. Welcome, Achal.
Thank you, Romela. Hello, everyone. My name is Achal, and I work as project manager with the 1947 Partition Archive on this very special pilot project. I am joining you all from New Delhi, India. It feels so good to be part of the organization from so long, and being from an oral citizen historian to story scholar and collecting stories by traveling in mostly in northern India, and now being part of the dissemination project where we are giving access to the researchers. I would like to introduce you all to accessibility of the 1947 Partition Archive at three Indian universities project. So this project is partially funded by Tata Trust, and we have collaborated with three Indian universities, one Delhi University in New Delhi, India, Ashoka University, Sonipat, and Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar. And we have also collaborated with two Pakistani universities. One is Lahore University of Management Science, and second is Habib University. The present Tata Trust Archive University Access project supports the Indian universities only. And the purpose of this project is to give an opportunity to research scholars and undergraduate researchers to study oral histories of partition via Research Access Center at the university. So thank you for joining, and yeah, thank you so much, Romela. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Achal. Now I would welcome our speaker for tonight, Professor Farooq Khan. Professor Khan has been associated with the archive for a very long time and was on the advisory committee board for his project. Let me start by telling you a little bit about him before we begin the interview. So Professor Farooq Khan has been with Lahore University of Management Sciences since 2001. He has a PhD in post-colonial studies from University of Kent at Canterbury, where he taught for 2 years prior to coming to LUMS. He has also taught English as a foreign language in the UK during the summers. His research interests include the partition of India, post-colonial literature, Shakespeare, and oral history. Professor Khan has also directed Stories of the Broken Self, a documentary on the Pakistani women's narratives of the 1947 partition. Professor Khan, we are so glad to have you tonight at our event. Your work on oral history on the partition, your documentary, is really fascinating. So let's start talking about it. So would you like to talk about your research work on partition?
Okay. Thank you very much, Romila, and for 1947 Archive for giving me this opportunity. And I think like this particular launch, at least as far as Indian universities are concerned, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for the scholars and students there, and hopefully things will become better or more suited that this research process kind of takes place in Pakistan as well. As myself, I've been working on oral narratives. I think like the first oral history interview I conducted was in 1997. That's you know even though my background was in literature, but for my PhD, I kind of at that particular time, because I come from a border area. My parents come from a border area, and their families had moved from Gurdaspur into Pakistan. So I had kind of grown up with hearing these stories whenever I would visit my village. So, but the thing is, they never really entered my mind in terms of that these could be things that one could view as of academic interest. And it wasn't till I was in doing my postgraduate work in England that I heard Urvashi Botalia, and she spoke about her own family and her own history, her own life being intertwined with partition. So I think that was the eureka moment for me, and that I think like no, since that particular time there's been no turning back. That I think what oral history is able to do is so much more than as far as the complexity of human experience is concerned. That this is something which is now again, which is rather ironic that as someone who has a background in literature and in the written word, I have kind of maybe give greater emphasis on the spoken word. So kind of a deliberate move away from the written word. And I think like oral history is something which is absolutely uh, almost as true as a medium that you can have as far as capturing the human experience is concerned.
Thank you, Professor Khan, for talking about that. Like, you have also been teaching partition online. So, would you like to talk about that, like your experiences and how you came across the idea of teaching partition online?
Perfect. Again, because as I said that my PhD was on partition. So when I joined LUMS in 2001, at that particular time, I was looking at kind of maybe more innovative courses to teach, and I remember looking at courses being taught at the undergraduate level in the subcontinent, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and there wasn't any course which was on partition. So what would happen is that the traditional histories would come and be it colonialism or even pre-colonialism, but then they would stop at 1947. And what you would have then is that again the modern history would start after 1947 with the kind of coming of independence to India or Pakistan. So what got kind of left behind was the most important piece in the jigsaw puzzle, which was to understand what is it that happened. So I started teaching this course in 2001, and again in between, I think like on 3 or 4 occasions, I brought my students to India, brought them to Guru Nanak University, brought them to JNU, brought them to Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi. And then again I went visited Patiala University as well. So all these experiences were there, which were then kind of reincorporated into the course that I was teaching. And within that course, one of the important components was that students had to do oral interviews. Kind of then jumping for before the pandemic, I was in talks with a few friends in India, and the idea came up that why not do a kind of a co-teaching. But there were some again practical issues and administrative issues which came up, and it wasn't really possible. So what I then decided to do was that, hey, why not have the lecture and then put it on, as you're doing now, put it on Facebook live. So what I then did was that I created a Facebook page, which was called Literature of Conflict page. And then so whenever we would have the class, we would just kind of, so it was kind of pretty rudimentary, and again and again, I'm someone who's like, have very little knowledge as far as IT skills are concerned. But the thing is that you would have considerable number of views of those live classes, got messages from India, from other parts of the world, of people who were interested. So these were kind of things which were happening before COVID, whereas now that is the norm. Online teaching, and and again, one is not talking about too far back. One is talking about in the year 2000 and the year 2019. But what it did, at least for me, was that it just kind of expanded the horizons. And as someone who's interested in partition, and there is always additional knowledge with kind of from each new generation. There is one type of knowledge which the people who experienced it, then the second generation has a different kind of knowledge. The third generation, they are able to connect with their elders in a much more different way, almost kind of much more open way than the second generation, I think. And that is something which one has noticed in the Indian as well as in the Pakistani side.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much, Professor Khan, for sharing that. Coming to my next question, Professor Khan, you have also recorded oral histories for your own work in Pakistan. So, would you like to talk about it, your
Yeah.
experience of collecting oral histories, and how it has been?
Yeah. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I think to record is to provide a platform. Okay, so from the very beginning, I felt that one should not do what the state or anyone who is more kind of powerful in terms of, be it as a position of knowledge or as far as the state is concerned, which is that it appropriates someone else's story. Okay, so again, what I focused on, and again, even the first interview that I did in 1997 always used a video recorder. Okay, so there were certain limitations that when one is having a conversation, that's okay. As soon as you put on a camera, the conversation becomes almost kind of very forced. The answers are very short, and this is much more so with the older generation, with the survivors of partition, because this is not really something that they are or they were used to. So, but again, for me, I think to capture the experience, you have to be able to see the person. You have to see how he or she responds. I'm using my hands. There are certain expressions that I have. There are certain tonal kind of pitches and highs. When one is talking, there is certain amount of passion. There are sometimes I would move forward. There are things that I would move back. So most of this stuff is captured in through the video. So that was something which was my fascination. And the disadvantage of that was that one could talk to a number of people, but there would be many who would say, like, hey, as camera is not something that they are kind of keen on. But again, this was my thing. So I've recorded like close to, I don't know, 200-300 hours of if not more of these recordings. And then what I felt was that I would then make a documentary out of that. And that again, since one is talking about things taking place in India, that's a documentary that I've shown at number of places at the India Habitat Center in Delhi, in Patiala, at Amritsar. Even I think Lady Shri Ram College, I might have shown that. And I think like the most interesting way or to describe that would be, I think like that was in Patiala. I was showing this, and again, I being a Punjabi, and so you coming from Kolkata, I don't know you how you would understand that, but Punjabis on this side and up till Delhi, and so there are there might be frictions or something, but the language kind of smooths the surface on many occasions. So I remember that in Patiala, I showed this documentary, and there was this young Sikh student, and he came up to me, and he was kind of almost amazed, and he said, but this is so weird. This older woman that you have, she was just speaking like my grandmother. But I said, in a way that it shouldn't have been surprising, because the woman that he was talking about had moved from Patiala. Okay, so in the same way that when I was in India and I interviewed a number of people in India, because I was on a fellowship and was affiliated with CSDS in Delhi, and there, when one would talk to people who had moved, say, from Sialkot or from Lalpur, which is now called Faisalabad, these are things that one is able to pick up extremely quickly. That you hear people speaking, and then you just kind of turn, because these are accents that you've heard back home, and these are people who moved. So again, all these things. And another interesting thing which happened at Habitat was that there were few people, and some of them were extremely kind of almost agitated, and one could understand that, because literature, because partition is about passion, in a sense that because one lost so much, the damage to one's physical, mental, financial, everything was disrupted. And then that's true for both sides. And since this was something about Pakistani women, and so they were angry that how can you show this, that this is the experience that we had, which is that, again, because you have been through a painful experience, it is something which is much more closer to your identity. And they said, why don't you have the other side as well? But I said, this is something that I am deliberately doing, not to create a balance. You cannot have balance because there is violence on both sides. It's not balancing out, it is showing violence on two occasions. So this documentary is almost kind of biased in a sense, because it is just talking about one side's experience of partition, but there are differences within that particular narrative. So the point is that you don't kind of see or empathize with someone's experience because he or she belongs to a particular religious identity, or because he or she speaks a particular language. If one is talking about, after all these years, one is trying to understand the human suffering, not suffering of people who are moving from, of course, and again, as far as oral narratives are concerned, they capture that. But if you're going to look at extrapolate from individual to the collective, then you see the human suffering. You see people who are in these different economic and social categories maybe form their group than the easy group of Hindus, Muslims, or Sikhs.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Professor Khan, for sharing those anecdotes. Those are really very interesting, especially the one that you talked about Patiala, that how that person associated through the language with his own grandmother. So coming to the next question. So how is oral history collection helping the scholars in their research? Like, we are doing this, we have this program where we are giving access to the oral histories that we have to Indian researchers. So, what do you think? How this scholarship will help them for
it
their
is
research?
it is the most important, I think, reservoir of knowledge that I think for far too long, people in the subcontinent or the so-called developed world, that we've kind of left behind, because there is this hierarchy of knowledge is that, for example, be it during the colonial times or pre-colonial times, whoever is in power, whatever it is that they have, the knowledge then becomes a means of power. That, for example, if you are a ruling class and you are able to speak Sanskrit, or someone who's in England, or maybe there they were able to speak Latin, or you are in Pakistan and you are able to speak Urdu or English, that becomes a source of power. So vast majority of people do not have access to these for whatever reasons. Bad educational system, unequal financial or social access to education. Just because you speak a particular language, just because you read particular books, you acquire knowledge, but you are not, in a sense, better than other people. Okay, just having more information doesn't make you better. Okay, so oral history, on the other hand, I think it becomes this great equalizer. It challenges the notions of knowledge that we have. Just because I'm sitting in, I don't know, some university in England, or some other university, and I've done a PhD and I bring out a book, why is what I am saying more important than someone within my family who has been through this particular experience? His or her the use of word or the narration might be different, but I think so. That's why I think this is something which is 1947 archive. It's done an absolutely fantastic service. It's something that which is there. The position that one has of kind of listening or watching, or an oral interview, and the subjective position that you're able to take on that. As far as the written word is concerned, there is this certain hierarchy. It starts from this point, then there is middle, and then there is end. As far as oral narratives are concerned, you have conversations going all over the place. They do not follow a linear narrative. At times, they kind of latch on to certain stereotypes. At certain times, there is certain individuality which comes in. And that is the beauty, which the written word absolutely does not have access to that. Okay. So I think that, what oral history, not just of partition, of any event, the everyday life, the social, political, other things which are going on. But again, now as far as partition is concerned, I think it is of immense service. It is something that different disciplines, not just history, not just literature, cultural studies, sociology, gender studies, notions of trauma, all these different disciplines can come together and look at this rich archival knowledge which has been put in one place. So I think it's absolutely tremendous.
Absolutely. Thank you, Professor Khan, for sharing that. So now we would like to take some questions from the audience. So please type your questions into the comment boxes, and we will choose some of them to ask Professor Khan. So if you have any questions, please type it down in the comment section.
I think, as it happens in the class as well, it takes a little while before people are able to formulate questions. But again, I'm happy to take in comments. I'm happy to take criticism. So, and anything that people can kind of add, maybe something which requires further explanation. I'm happy to do that. And did we say that I'm actually calling from? I'm sitting in Lahore. You'd mentioned Kolkata and New Delhi, so just wanted to add to that. So we've added Lahore to that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Following from East Africa, Kenya. Thank you.
That's great. So we think we don't have any questions at this point.
Which is
So,
fine. That's okay. That's
yeah,
okay. That's fine as well.
yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Khan, for giving us this time for this insightful talk. It was really great interacting with you, and I hope our audiences also enjoyed a lot. And so, thank you everyone for tuning in. If you love our oral history work and our mission, please consider making a donation of any size. We rely 100% on donations as an NGO. So, in some countries, donations are tax free, and we will have the links in the description to this video. So, thank you so much, everyone.
Th-
I wish you good night, and thank you so much, Professor Khan.
th-
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I think it's a tremendous initiative that has been launched. My best wishes. Thank you.